In this video, we're going to look at equations of circles and how to graph them. All right, if we have a circle here with a center of x of 0, y of -3, so there's our center. And if the radius is 2, then we can go 2 units left, right, up, and down, and then just draw our circle as best we can. Okay, so that would be our circle. It's not perfect, but it's okay. All right, now the equation would be we take x minus the x value of the center, quantity squared, and then plus y minus the y value of the center, quantity squared, and that's equal to radius squared. So the equation would be x squared plus y plus 3 quantity squared is equal to 4. There's our equation. Let's try another one. Here we have a center of 4, 3, so I go over 4 units for x and up 3. There's my center. And now the diameter is 6. Diameter goes all the way directly across, and that is 2 times the radius. So if the diameter is 6, that's just twice the radius. So the radius is 3. Okay, so we go up 3 units to graph, up and down 3 units, and left and right 3 units. Okay, so then graph as good as I can. It's not perfect, but that's okay. So there's our circle, and then the equation of that line, it goes x minus the x value of the center quantity squared plus y minus the y value of the center quantity squared is equal to the radius squared. So that is equal to 9. All right, so then we have our equation of our circle. Okay, what if this equation of my circle is not in the standard form, but is instead set equal to 0? What we're going to do is just get all of our x's together. We're going to rewrite this so that it is in standard form so that we can see from the equation the center and the radius. So I'm going to collect my x's. So x squared minus 4x, and then I'll go ahead and collect my y's. Plus y squared minus 20y, and I can go ahead and get all of my numbers over on the other side. So move the constant over to the right side. Now what we're going to do is complete the square twice. So I'll show you how this works. Okay, so what we do is we look at x squared minus 4x. I'm just going to look at the x part of this. All right. Now if this had been x squared minus 4x plus 4, that would actually factor as x minus 2 times x minus 2. So knowing where I want to go, which is the general form of the equation where I have my x factored out into this kind of a format where it's x minus the x value of the center quantity squared. Okay, so it's not like that. I don't have a 4 here. Okay, but what I can do is give myself what I want as long as I do the same thing to both sides of the equation. I can add 4 to both sides, that's fine. It's not going to change the value of my equation if I add 4 to both sides. Okay, now doing that allows me then to have a expression that can factor. Okay, we're going to do the same thing for our y's. We look at this y part of our equation, and we have y squared minus 20y, and I'm going to just give myself what I want to be able to factor that perfectly. Okay, now here's the thing. We can always figure out what to add. What we add is you go to the coefficient of just the plain y, not the squared part. You take that coefficient, -20, you divide it in half, and get -10, and that's what you square to get 100. So what we need to add to both sides here is 100. Okay. So completing the square, the thing that we add is the coefficient of the plain variable, not the squared part. you take and divide that coefficient in half and square it, and that's what you add to both sides. Okay, so keep going here. We would get y squared minus 20y plus 100, and that factors as y minus 10 times y minus 10, and then I can just rewrite that as y minus 10 quantity squared. All right, so that's the y component of my equation, and then I just go in and I clean up the right side. Let's see, negative 68 plus 4 plus 100. So if I had 104 minus 68, that is, that's 36. Okay, so this whole right side simplifies down to 36. Okay, so now I have the general form of my equation, and from that I can just look at it and tell what the center is. Okay, so the number that's being subtracted from x, that is the x value of the center. The number that's being subtracted from y, that's the y value of the center. So our center is at 210, and then the radius, r squared, is 36, so that means that r is 6. Okay, so complete the square and then rewrite it into the general form so that then you can tell what the center and the radius are. All right, I'll do one more of these. Okay, so the first step is to get all of the x's together. So I would have x squared plus 10x, and then get all of my y terms. So I'd have plus y squared plus 4y, and just subtract out your numbers so that we have the constant term over on the other side of the equation. And now we're ready to complete the square. Okay, so the number that we add here for the x's, what we're going to do is take that coefficient of x, divide it in half, and square it. That's what we're going to add to both sides for the x component. And for the y component, we go here to the coefficient of y. You take whatever that number is, split it in half, and square it. So we were going to need to add 25 to both sides to complete the square for x, and 4 to both sides to complete the square for y. All right, here we go. X squared plus 10x plus 25. Okay, so that I'm just giving myself an extra 25, and the only way I can do that is if I add 25 to both sides of the equation. So the equation's still equal as long as we add the same thing to both sides. Okay, now for my y's, I have y squared plus 4y plus, what I need to add to complete the square there is a 4 to both sides. Okay, great. So now for the x's, these factor down as x plus 5 times x plus 5, which is just x plus 5 quantity squared. And for the y's, this factors as y plus 2 times y plus 2, which just can be rewritten as y plus 2 squared. Okay, and then we just look at what we get over here on the right. We have 25 plus 4 is 29 minus 21, so that would be 8. And now we can look at that and figure out, well, what is the center? Okay, so the general form of the equation is x minus a number, and that number h, that is the x value of the center. If it has a plus, what's really happening in here is you've got x minus a negative 5. So the x value for the center is a negative 5. And then the same thing here for the y. Putting that into the true general form, it needs to be y minus some number, and it would be a negative 2. So the center is negative 5, negative 2. Okay, and then the radius, r squared, is 8, and so that means r is the square root of 8, which simplifies down. That's 4 times 2, that's the square root of 8, so then that would simplify to 2 root 2. There's my radius. So I got center, and I got radius, and I'm done.